Welcome everyone. Come on in and find a seat. We're glad to have you. Come on in. All right, so welcome to the 2025 Dr. Wendell Sadler Distinguished Speaker Series. We're so glad that you're here. And our guest speaker today is Mr. Sean Decker. And we're so glad to have you here, Sean. I'm Dr. Caleb Heath, and I'm the Dean for the School of Kinesiology at Tarleton State. And it's an honor to welcome you to this year's event to celebrate the vision, the leadership, and the relentless pursuit of excellence from within the School of Kinesiology. So if you're a School of Kinesiology major, kinesiology or sport management, we're glad to have you. You're in the right place. At Tarleton State, the School of Kinesiology lives by a bold vision, building fearless champions. And we believe this to our core. We're deeply committed to equipping you, our students, with the knowledge, the practical skills, and the unshakable confidence to lead and to thrive in an ever-changing kinesiology and sport industry. We do more than educate, we empower. We hope you get that. We hope you know that. We hope you see that with your faculty. So let me share a powerful truth with you. 104 years ago, physical training, now known as kinesiology or sport management, was formally established at Tarleton. Sean, I don't know if you know that. We started in 1921 as an academic department. Since that time, we've had generations of dedicated faculty and students who've contributed to our legacy of innovation, impact, and integrity. And what we've been able to do is have a fearless commitment to growth, to adapt, to remain relevant, and to lead with a purpose in a world that never stops changing. And that's what we hope you get from today. The world doesn't change, you have to be able to adapt. All right? And our speaker will speak more or talk more about that. So this event it stands as a legacy or a testament to that legacy, that 104-year legacy. So what started in 2014 was a simple class project in a graduate course that has grown into a significant signature experience, and that is the Dr. Wendell Sadler Distinguished Speaker event. So we started this back in 2014, and we did this in an effort to amplify voices, celebrate excellence, and inspire all who attend. And for that, we owe an immense sense of gratitude to Dr. Wendell Sadler. Dr. Sadler has been a cornerstone of the School of Kinesiology for more than 3 decades, and in 2022, he was named the Texas A&M University System Regents Professor, the highest honor from the A&M system. Dr. Sadler's steadfast vision and unwavering dedication have created countless opportunities for our students, inspiring all of you and past students to dream boldly, to confidently step into leadership roles, and to go far beyond the gates of Tarleton. So to all of you, welcome. And thank you, Dr. Sadler, for your vision. Before we turn it over to Dr. Sadler to introduce our speaker, Mr. Sean Decker, just a few housekeeping items. Number 1, Mr. Decker will host a Q&A session at some point. You may want to participate. There may be some cool swag given away. All right? Also, don't forget your t-shirt coupon. When you leave, go out these doors, turn right. There'll be a table there. Turn in your coupon for your t-shirt. And then right across the way, you'll have some delicious snacks. So feel free to enjoy, and we appreciate you being here. So again, welcome to what promises to be an inspiring and impactful afternoon. Dr. Sadler, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. P. Scholars, welcome to this, our 11th year. We haven't had 11 because COVID kind of was not our friend for a couple of years. Regardless, your attendance here is most appreciated. Not only for us as a School of Kinesiology, but also for our speaker. He's one of us as a kinesiology graduate. It's been a few years, but not that long. I get the distinct pleasure of getting to cite a few things about Sean Decker, and that is, among those many things, he's president of Rev Entertainment. He's going to talk about it. It's certainly a full-service sports and events company, but he's also, and you know this best, he's Executive Vice President of Sports and Entertainment of the Texas Rangers Baseball Club. Why not you? Now, Rev is the official sports and entertainment partner with the Texas Rangers. He wears a couple of hats, depending on what hour of the day it is, I'm sure. But under his leadership, this organization has expanded. Now, many of you in this room are sports management concentration folks. Well, sports management, events, marketing, and by the way, it's worldwide. I want to emphasize worldwide. Concerts, sporting events, and other private events, year-round entertainment, Globe Life Field, Choctaw Stadium, and others around the country. Now, under Sean's leadership, Rev has established relationships among some of the top names and events in sports entertainment industry, to include the Big 12 Conference and the United Football League. And unfortunately, he won't be able to hang around too long after he wraps up today, because he's got a meeting with the UFL this evening. Now, one thing I'm really interested in, Sean knows this, that I'm a big racing fan as well, that the Grand Prix of Arlington is going to be next summer, and he's going to be highly involved in that. So, Sean, I want to put my name in right now. I'm available to drive the pace car, and if I don't get to drive the pace car, I'll drive you around in the golf cart. All right. So, hockey, minor league baseball. He'll talk about his baseball franchises and such. A native of Grapevine. I know we've got some Grapevine in here. Went originally to the Rangers organization in 2010. Now, he earned his bachelor degree in kinesiology, exercise and sports studies, in 2007. So he's not that far removed, but just far removed enough to share with us today his awesome successes in the sports entertainment and business. And only a couple of years ago, he was recognized as Tarleton's outstanding young alumnus. Wow. His wife, Rennie, and their two sons, Brett and Reed, resides in Hollywood. And you know where Hollywood is at. So, Sean, I am going to lay my paper aside here and just say thank you so much for being here. You honor us by coming back. You know, when you graduate, when all of you graduate, the president's going to say that the gates are always open. Well, the gates are open, and Sean came through the gates this afternoon onto our campus and is going to share his successes with us. Why not you? Be thinking of a good question as he speaks, and when he wraps up this week, when we get into our Q&A. Sean? It's up to you. It's all right. Here we go.
Thank you, Dr. Sadler. Good afternoon. Hello. Excited to be here. Maybe the longest intro ever for me, so thank you for that. You speak slower, it makes it sound better sometimes. Appreciate you guys having me. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. This place had a massive impact on me and my family. My wife is also a graduate of Tarleton, and shortly thereafter me. So I saw Dr. Breeze here. I can't wait to give him a hug. It's been a minute. That guy got me my college internship, and we spent a lot of time together. So excited to be here. I thought what I would do is give you guys a quick overview on kind of my path from Tarleton to what I've done, tell you a little bit about our company today and what it looks like. And please, by all means, if you feel like blurting out a question in the middle of it, it'll probably be more entertaining for all of us if that happens. So I was here at Tarleton from 2004 to 2007. I came here because I wanted to get into coaching. That's why I wound up in exercise and sports studies. I wanted to coach. And I came here thinking I wanted to be a football coach, and then I decided I wanted to be a strength coach. And then along the way, in 2004 and 5, I got an opportunity to umpire professional baseball. And from doing that, I learned in the summers that ultimately being on the field was great, but it was tough being in a new city every 4 days and traveling the country that way. And I really loved the business of professional sports. And so at the time, my only aspiration was to ultimately go work for a minor league team and someday be a general manager of a minor league team. I say that partially because I think there are a lot of you guys that know you want to do something in the industry or around the industry, and I was talking to Dr. Peep about this last week. I don't think it matters what you do, I just think that it matters that you do something, and even if that something is something that you learn that you ultimately don't want to do, it'll get you one step closer to what you do want to do. So I went from umpiring, I graduated from here, and then I kind of set on I've lived in California, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, almost exclusively for baseball. Worked for the Colorado Springs Sky Sox, the AAA team at the time. Doesn't exist actually anymore. I did such a good job, I had to close it out. I then worked for Major League Baseball in Arizona, and then ultimately I came back to Texas. My wife was just graduating, and I got an opportunity to work for the Frisco Rough Riders, the Rangers AA team. So I moved home, and candidly, I expected to be back in Texas for like 12 months and then get back out on the road, kind of jumping from job to job. Right before I got married, I got offered an opportunity to go to the Rangers in premium sales and started selling suites there. Over time, I then ran our events department, became the vice president of ballpark operations on the Rangers side. And then in 2016, when we started the campaign to build a new ballpark, we had ownership came to me and said, I know you used to be in events, we had some real success while you were there. In order for us to grow this business, we were going to take on massive debt to build a new ballpark in Arlington. The city of Arlington put in a lot of money towards that, and the ownership group and the team were going to take on a massive amount of debt. And the old traditional way of baseball, just selling tickets and sponsorships and things for Rangers games, wasn't going to fill the full bucket. So the question was, how do we ultimately drive more revenue, create more commerce around the sports space, specifically at what's now Globe Life Field, in order to make this make sense? And I put together, I think it was a 12-page business plan, and I sat down with our owners and said, I don't think you just want a bigger department or a bigger group. I think you need to build a world-class company, and this is how I recommend you do it. And probably silly of me at the time, but I didn't really think I was going to be the one asked to do it. I thought I was just brainstorming with them. Ownership bought into it, and that's what ultimately built Rev. So our evolution, we were the Rangers Events Department, Rangers Enterprises in 2012. We rebranded as Rangers Events in 2016 or 20-ish, I guess 2015. And then in 2017, I launched Rev Entertainment. If you look at our company across the platform, we didn't actually launch it publicly until 2021. And the thought process was we wanted to go accomplish a few things. I feel like somebody announces a new company every day, but that doesn't mean they've actually proven they can do anything. And I think it's powerful to say that we know we can do this, and that's why our company matters. So we spent 4 years, and our clients knew who Rev was because we would sign contracts as Rev. But we thought that the new ballpark in 2020 would be our jumping off point. Well, unfortunately, COVID, like for everybody, changed our plans. So we continued operating. We actually got some incredible experience. We converted the ballpark in 2020 to, we hosted 60 high school graduations because we could socially distance. I think we hosted 72 high school football games at Choctaw Stadium. We started doing concerts in your car, in the parking lot. We just tried to hustle. We tried to find ways to get people to gather in a safe way. And then that ultimately led us to the National Finals Rodeo. We were also the first neutral site in Major League Baseball to host the World Series. I can assure you, anybody who grows up working for a baseball team, your dream is not to host the World Series with two teams you don't work for. That's never really part of the goal or the plan. But nonetheless, getting the opportunity to host it was great, and then obviously getting the real World Series, as we like to say, in 2023 was a big accomplishment. So as we launched in 2021, we thought about the world mostly as how we were going to be an events company, how we were going to book content. As we think about kind of what our world is today, we think of it in a kind of a number of different buckets. The buckets are mostly related to our different, we think about our events company for sure. Today, 72% of our revenue still comes from our events company. We think about it as sports management. We own and operate minor league teams. We're about to actually announce on Friday a new hockey team. Hopefully this isn't going to have somewhere else in the country that we own. We own the Cleveland Railroaders right down the road. I was actually there this afternoon. We own the Kane County Cougars, a baseball team outside of the Chicago area, and we're expanding that space. Also in that group, we're building roughly an $80 million basketball arena in Noblesville, Indiana, which will be the home for the G League team for the Pacers. We're building a $90 million soccer stadium in Mansfield, Texas, which will be the home to North Texas Soccer Club and MLS Next Pro. And then Rev books and operates those facilities in a thoughtful way. Also in sports management, we own a food service company. We don't intend to be a juggernaut in food service, but what we do want to do in places that we operate, we want to control the entire fan experience. We want to not pay third-party vendors to come control that experience. So we've created a food service company. So in Cleburne, when you come in, from the second you arrive there, from a parking attendant to when you go in the gate to a ticket taker, to the food service, to the players, everybody in that is hired, and the entire process is, we take accountability for the entire process across that, which is somewhat unique to others. We also launched a sports marketing agency a little less than 2 years ago. The thought process for me was a lot of what we're doing in the events and sports management side is super important to drive revenue on the sponsorship component. Ultimately, we were using the Rangers sponsorship department to do that, and as we've grown, they have a day job to do with the Rangers, and as the control freak that I am and that my group is, it's not possible to go say, hey, we got to sell this, and they say, yeah, they're like opening days in 3 weeks, and so we got to focus on that. So we hired our own agency, and we had some exciting wins there. We're only 2 years old, but we've been contracted by Conference USA. We're selling the naming rights to the entire conference. That's public. We have a couple of confidential major league teams where we're either selling a jersey patch for them or the naming rights to their stadiums. So what we call large entitlements across the space on the commercial side. They're also selling the Arlington Grand Prix and all the events, the Shriners College Baseball Showdown. We host 50 college baseball games a year across our different places. As a matter of fact, Tarleton was supposed to play in Cleveland and got snowed out. So the other two areas that we're spending a lot of time, for those of you guys that are fans of the Rangers, you may have noticed that we launched our own sports media network this year. As it's super, hopefully you guys are talking about this, but the RSN model, the regional sports networks, is a massive challenge in our space today. And it's well publicized that professional teams were getting guarantees of more than $100 million for the media rights. And that model is cracking. I don't know, and I don't know if it's possible to poll the audience here, but I would assume that most of you are doing everything through different apps and streaming and don't have traditional cable or satellite TV now. And so as part of that, we had to react to that. So we created our own owned and operated network. And while the Rangers baseball broadcast is 100% the focus today, Rev will be super involved in how we think about shoulder content and filling the content 24 hours out of the day. So that's a big piece of it. And then we actually haven't even announced this yet. It's not a big secret, but we just launched a development company in the last, just under contract in the last month. So as you think about, we're not developers, but we hired some great developers. And what we think that Rev is good at is if sports and entertainment are the catalyst for development, that's something really strong that we can do. So as we think about how we grow, and when I think about the different verticals in which we need to go, it's taking our events outside of Arlington to do events globally. We do about 350 events a year right now, probably close to 300 that's in Arlington, Texas. So we want to get that number to where it's closer to 700 or 1,000. And we're doing more outside of Arlington, Texas than we are specifically just in Arlington. We want to expand our ownership in teams and entities. My goal and vision is to get to 25 or 30 minor league teams and entities that we own and operate, and what that is. And we want to develop around those universities and programming that we do for events. From a development standpoint, and also our minor league venues. So as we think about like how we're going to grow in the future, those are kind of the 4 areas that we're most thoughtful about. I'm happy to go deeper into any one of those. These are big slides, and can I give a test afterwards? You probably can't even read that from where you are. But as we think about global events and where we're going, frankly, college campuses are a really target-rich environment for us, especially as we think about kind of the Power 4 today. They're all in the same challenges the Texas Rangers were in when we started Rev. They've got to generate substantial revenue to offset the new world with NIL and funding for that. And so we're working with a number of campuses right now on how to book more content on their properties. I would say we're in varying levels of discussions with 20 to 30 schools currently and growing. Also, we have a project at the University of Tennessee that's a mixed-use development. So we're doing a lot on college campuses today and continuing to grow and what that looks like. The development component, these are all projects that are public, so we're constantly responding to RFPs and looking at the world to how we can wisely invest into that space. As we think about content, our initial focus is going to take current assets. Right now, when you think about college baseball, right now we're on Flow Sports, which some of you guys may be familiar with. Flow pays us for our rights. Well, in a world where that's changing, we're going to likely own our own rights into the future like we do for the Texas Rangers and have to go out and monetize those ourselves. So I think that's important. And I think it's also important that we create shoulder content. I joke that we're going to call the network Rev All Access, and I'm not sure if that's ever part of it, but I think that what consumers want more than ever, with content clearly being key and keying in our business, the thought is that we need to create more shoulder programming. Like, I want to do stories. I was telling Dr. Sadler in Cleburne, with our coaches and players, we have more than 50 years of Major League Baseball experience in our locker room in independent baseball. And last year they had a road trip from Cleveland, Texas to Winnipeg. And you put 50 years of Major League experience and jam it all into a 30-hour bus ride. There's some crazy stories that come out of that. And I want to document that and do a lot with it as we think about expanding. Also podcasts, you guys are probably better experts than me on podcasts, but that's become a big piece of our day-to-day as well. So I talked about the teams and the venues that we operate through the sports management side. Again, our goal here is to get to 25 or 30 teams. And we have a pretty strategic way in terms of how we get there. We value teams. In the sports world, we would love to value teams based on profitability and looking at their earnings and bottom line earnings, frankly. The truth is most of the teams that we invest or buy they're not profitable. So when we think about how we invest and buy teams, we think about it and looking at top-line revenue. And so we value entities based on a multiple of revenue. And then it's our belief that with our experience, we can go in, increase revenue, synergize a lot of the expenses by doing things maybe with a little bit more efficiency over multiple properties, and also bringing a lot of finance and HR and IT and types of those things back to an HQ environment to ultimately make those teams profitable, to get a higher valuation ultimately. But for us, we don't buy teams necessarily for cash flow, which is typical in most sports. We buy teams as we think about the asset based on what it will trade at in the future when we grow the asset ultimately, and that's how we think about that business. So other than that, we don't do anything. So that's it in terms of a quick overview on Rev.
Question and answer time. So be thinking of your questions.
All right, we got one.
Hi, Sean. I've been here in one of my classes. My name is Amy McKay, and so glad to have you back. So welcome. I was thinking about all of these different things that you had going in all these different buckets, as you call them. I want to know how many employees does Rev have? And then if you were to name 3 characteristics or commonalities that those employees have, what would be those characteristics?
Got it. So I started Rev with 3 employees. We literally came up with a name on a whiteboard in my old office. And today we're approaching 130 full-time employees around the country. So when we moved to Globe Life Field in 2020, I believe we had 7 workstations. Today we have 72 there. And then if you think about our teams, the teams range from 7 to 10 full-time to our biggest team has about 35. So that that's one of the things you don't think about when you set out to at least I didn't, when you set out to build, the goal, I think, for most people that think entrepreneurial is to build something great. The byproduct is it takes a lot of people to do that. And I would say that that's probably maybe my greatest challenge every day is just trying to figure out ways to motivate them. Creating culture, especially in a society where people work remotely and all of that is a big challenge. The 3 is perfect for the attributes. We have 3 non-negotiables at Rev, and I could bore you guys with coach speak for the rest of the time. But when I meet with staff on our first day, or I used to meet with them on the first day, now as we've grown, we meet with all of our new hires quarterly, or I do, and we have 3 non-negotiables at Rev, and they're attitude, effort, and accountability. And the best news for me is none of those take any skill. They're transferable to pretty much everything in your life. And when we tell people that, because the great thing for all of us here is to work in sports, you do not have to have just this unbelievable IQ. The teachers professors can attest to that I do not possess that. But the reality is what you do have to have is you have to show up every day with a tremendous attitude. The Rangers say it similarly but a little different. We say that you have to be a great teammate, you have to dominate the fundamentals, and you have to be a great teammate, you have to dominate the fundamentals, and you got to compete with passion. And I think that those align ironically well with the same ones for Rev that we transfer into the business side. And so those are all part of that. I would say that, like, speaking to this audience specifically, when we talk about hiring people, what we look for, when I was in your spot, I was really frustrated when I started interviewing for jobs because I kept hearing about how I didn't have any experience, and that was the piece. And what I missed then that I wish I knew was that they weren't talking to me about my actual experience working in professional sports. They were talking about me being just active day to day. And so when I talk to young people every day, like, the idea for me is you don't have to have 20 years in professional sports experience to come get a job at Rev. What you do have to be somebody that we look at very seriously is somebody that had things that were important to them to do. So whether that's working in the lab and putting in logging hours there, or whether it is ultimately if it's a church thing, if it's Greek, whatever your thing is, I look for people that take the 8 a.m. classes. So, and I don't know that I was that guy, in full disclosure, I took a few. But I want the folks that know how to get out of bed early because they had purpose to do it. They had to stay late because it took extra work, the effort component on that, and that they worked in groups, teams, or individually with a high level of accountability. To us, those are the people that win, and those are the people we can win with. We hire people first and skills second. I don't know that all companies do it that way, but again, what we do in our space is people dependent. We're in a people business, and so for us, we put a huge emphasis on that.
Thank you, John. Now, indeed, you are a scholar. You're an athletic scholar, you're a business scholar, you're into sports and entertainment, and beyond business. And that was one of the things that really struck me about your resume. Regardless. In this question and answer, if you've got questions, come on down. I'm going to give you a Ranger baseball cap. What's the biggest challenge each day?
It's a great question. The good news about we do so much now that every day is different. It's coming from the sports world where you're selling suites or premium sales every year, you're just trying to sell them more or do something like that. We do so much. I tell people I split my day over kind of 2 areas. 50% of my day is focused on working with the business. Each one of the companies I mentioned earlier has a business unit leader, and I work with them on working through those challenges. The other 50% of my day is on business development, and how we look at that, how we communicate and grow our business across different verticals. So there's no question when you deal with 100 full-time employees and thousands of seasonal employees around the country that people are always your biggest challenge, no question. But it's not because we're hiring or firing or any of that. It's ultimately you grow a business, and I tell people I got to build a company with my friends. The downside is you have to keep motivating those people. A lot of those people, Bill Gates has a great segment I encourage everybody to watch on what his biggest challenge at Microsoft was. And the truth is he found Microsoft with all these guys that were all multimillionaires by the time they were there, and he just showed up every day to motivate them. Now, we don't have that problem yet. I'm hoping that that's my problem someday. But our problem is still getting folks to that, like, we dominate the fundamentals as we talk about. And the challenge is getting folks as we get bigger and controlling the culture at that space. It gets really hard to invoke culture the further it gets from you. And so I think for us, like the people and the culture is definitely always our biggest challenge.
Hi, my name is Aubrey, and I was just wondering how you went about networking in undergrad in order to get post-grad opportunities. Like, you've worked so many jobs. I was just wondering how you went about networking to get those.
Yeah, listen, it'd probably be a lot harder for me now. I was a cold call guy for sure. I tried to find any way I could to talk to anybody I could in the sports space. Umpiring a little bit helped because I could call the GMs, the teams, and things that I worked at. But I think there's a little bit of a lost art in terms of what that is. People still want to connect. I would tell you guys, like LinkedIn, social media, all those things are tremendous tools. Thankfully, if they existed when I was around, I wasn't smart enough to know what they were. Teamwork online is a major asset. Hopefully you guys all either know that or have I'm not a paid advertiser, but I did get my first job in sports from Teamwork Online. And I would say most of us post on there. So I would say doing that. Volunteering and internships used to be a lot more prevalent. Labor laws. I mean, when I started, true story, Colorado Springs, I signed a contract for $0.00 per hour and 10% commission. I worked in operations, so there was no commission, by the way. So I think gaining the experience in a number of ways. I would love for all of you guys to come work in Cleburne, especially for free if you're interested. But find places to get opportunities, and it doesn't matter whether you're parking cars or working security. Nobody cares, but putting on there that you worked at this stadium and these experiences are there. And listen, staffing is an issue for all of us. It may not be in the roles that you want today, but getting an opportunity to get in the door, I would tell you to take every experience you can, even whether it's 1 hour, 1 day, 1 season. Find every team needs help, but they don't know. You need to find out where they need help. There's a great saying that if you want to get promoted, find out where your boss hates going and become good at it. I think if you want a job, find a pain point for a place, whether, like I said, it's parking cars, cleaning the stands, whatever, and find your way in the door and an opportunity that way.
Hi, my name is Peyton Acker, and I recently got advice from actually an employer about leveraging skill sets, and I'm trying to understand what that means and figuring out what that means. But basically, he was telling me I don't necessarily care, just like what you said, that you've worked here for so long. Again, a lot of us are 20 and 21. We haven't worked anywhere long at all. We're here earning our degrees. But he said leveraging a skill set is in when you did this job for 3 to 6 months because you had to change because of your schedule or whatever else it may be. What skill set did you learn? And what did you actually learn how to do? And what can you actually apply here? I could have worked at a job the same as another person. We could both work there 6 months. We go off to apply to another job. One person walked away with a completely different experience than another. And a different skill set that they built than another. So what is your advice, especially to like a 20, 21-year-old about building a skill set, how to do that at a job at any level? Because again, a lot of us are young and we're starting out on those lower levels. Like, how do we build a skill set that sometimes maybe feels like we don't always have the opportunity to build or like experience that?
Yeah, good question. I think when someone talks about like, listen, some of the semantics and learning how to speak the language and being around those people, but I think you guys have, I mean, most of you guys can do laps around me as it relates to social media. The question is, are you leveraging that, to use your term, are you leveraging that in a way, or thinking about leveraging that in a way to build commerce? Like, hey, I'm really good on social media. I know because at Tarleton, my friend was in a garage band and I promoted it and got 400 people to show up. Like, that'd be super interesting to me. I'm trying to get 40,000 people to show up, but it starts with 400, right? So I would say that like you're acquiring those skills here, and you should be acquiring those skills here. And the more you put out there, and the more that you do that, the more you will. I had a boss at the Arizona Fall League, a guy named Cobb, and he used to always tell me it was my second job in sports, and it was a glorified internship at best. And he essentially told me that like you have to go in there and tell these people like, I'm not telling you I think I can do this. I know I can do this because, and what is that doing? And by the way, knowing that, like, I knew I could book travel for major league players to get from place to place because I booked a mission trip for my church. That's practical experience. That matters. So I think you have to be really thoughtful about what have you done, and if you can't answer that question, maybe you haven't done enough. I'm not saying that necessarily, but getting experience when you're talking to those people. They aren't asking you what you were doing at age 7 to get you experience for today. What they're asking is, what have you done recently? Like, what have you been held accountable to performing on, and how do you do that? So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the way I would look at it is, you already have the skill set. You're learning it here. You're getting practical experience every day in something different, both personally and in the classroom, and what that is, and how you can leverage that to make that place better does matter.
Hi, I'm Samantha, and my question is wondering how you applied what you learned in undergrad into like real-world opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, each stop probably has a different one, so we probably don't. I would say this, like, when you, so much of what you're doing here that you don't realize is, so much of it's in the classroom, so nothing professors on that, but so much of it is in like do you show up on time? Like, do you do your work on schedule? Can you work in a team? Can you work by yourself? Like, when I think about what it was, I could probably go around and say things in each class. So there was a speech I won in Dr. Sadler's class. I want that on the record. I did win that year. But I remember going into that classroom in a moment that came, and I could give you that moment in each place. But I can't tell you that there was a test that I took that ultimately is why I'm the president of Rev Entertainment. That's not part of it. I think what I learned here was how to interact with people, especially when I got to the actual, I struggled with anatomy here. I told you something good I did. I just really struggled with A&P. I got a C in one and I failed the second one. So, but what I did learn to do is how to show up to every study hall, to do everything, to pick the right people's brains and to be a part of that. I also learned how to manage the fact that I was umpiring professionally and having to leave early and take finals. So I would say the life experience for me is like what I applied as much as that. But the life experience, that doesn't mean that the classroom wasn't important. The classroom required me to go there to get the practical and to learn from the book side, to work with other people, and then so many of those things that come with it.
Hi, my name is Madison Morales, and the question I had was, who was your mentor along the way to where you got to right now?
Good question. Pretty much a complete byproduct, and I could probably name one everywhere I went. Going across my career is a guy named Jeff Wendell in Colorado Springs, was the assistant general manager, let me crash on his couch. Again, I was unpaid. So I spent a lot of nights on his couch, and he had more than 20 years in the industry and really walked me through that. When I went to the Arizona Fall League, it was a guy named Steve Cobb was the president of that. And I could literally do this at every stop and could tell you, and it would be pretty personal and specific to me. I always believed I was a decent athlete growing up, and the one skill set that I had was I could watch players and emulate them pretty well. I think young people, I have two small sons and they do it now, they want to hit like Adolis Garcia or whatever the case may be. I could always do that, and I think that ultimately what my career has become is I've tried to pick up positives from each one of those people that I went. And I could tell you something on all of them. I didn't want to be in sales, which is funny because most of my career now has been in revenue. But Jeff Wendell in Colorado Springs, to use his, was maybe the best sales guy I'd ever seen. And he had done deals across all the categories and showed me how to do that. And then I got to the Arizona Fall League, and it was basically an operational role. And I learned a lot there about schedule coordinating and how to do that. But also, Steve was an unbelievable motivator of people. He required quotes before every meeting that different people had to share, and we had to talk about how that implemented. So everywhere we've gone, I've tried to pick up something from each one. And I would tell you that, I could also tell you a couple places that people that maybe were my mentors but served as great examples showed me exactly what not to do too. And so I think that at each stop you make, including here as you go, look at the folks that you think you want to emulate and steal their best attributes and try to lose their worst ones, because that's 100% of what my career has been. It's just been a huge blessing to work with amazing people. And by the way, I would say a number of people on my staff today I look at as mentors in different areas, and so I think that'll be massive. That's been massive for me, anyways.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Melissa Vargas, and I'm applying to my graduate, so I got asked this question. What's the significant issue in the sports industry right now, and why do you think it's so important?
Gosh, how much time you got? Listen, I mentioned the sports networks. That's a massive challenge for us. The fact that people are consuming television differently and taking from most of us a top 3 revenue stream and slicing it in less than half in most cases, that's a massive issue for us as we go. The idea that the elasticity of pricing is an issue, right? As the economy moves, what do you look at there? I would study media and content is the one that we should all be really obsessed with right now. And there's no question there's huge challenges that come with it, but there are massive opportunities. If you look at some of the fault people and the numbers that they're putting up with it, it's tremendous. We've been really pleased, for those of you guys that haven't yet, in this region, we're on Victory Plus as our direct-to-consumer. I think what our ownership group did is pretty transformative, and that sounds a little arrogant. I'm not taking credit for it, but I think the way that the Rangers looked at it for us is probably pretty... time will tell if they're geniuses or we're idiots or whatever the case may be, but we're the first team that intentionally created their own network, owns 100% of it, because there are other teams that have their own networks, but they're not 100% owned by the club, so that's a difference. We also are the first to go direct to distributor. We took what the RSN used to do, and we said we're going to carve it up, and we're going to go direct to DirecTV, we're going to go direct to Comcast, we're going to go direct to all those folks. Plus, we're going to carve out our direct to consumer and do it through Victory, and we're going to create all these different revenue streams, and then we're going to sell against it. I think that's unique. Again, I don't know where the world moves, but I know for us, it was a massive change in philosophy. It's always easier just to get somebody to write you a check and then let them do the work. I think the idea that we've cut out the middleman in that space, I'm hopeful that history will be pretty favorable for us. But for all of you guys, I think that the two things that we're trying to embrace is the new world of that. I also just signed a massive contract today in the AI space. And I think what people think of as they think about AI is that it's replacing human jobs. We don't think about it that way. I just spent the equivalent of a salary to bring it in, and we didn't let a single person go. What I'm using it for mostly on where we're at, the data and analytics group, of course, is using AI in a lot of ways. I'm really interested in what it does for lead generation and sales, having all of these bots be able to make phone calls and emails. And what I will say is true is the computer doesn't call in sick. It shows up every day. It makes 1,000 outbound reaches a day. Those things matter. But ultimately, to close those sales, these are tools for our sales staff. And so with more going out, we need more people to service it. So for us, AI and RSN and what that world looks like is going to be really fascinating, and how we leverage it in a way that really makes sense to grow our businesses are the two closest things I watch.
Hi, my name is Sam Wendell. I just wanted to ask, when you're working with a company or a team with so many people, how do you not only uphold the standard, but make sure everybody's working toward the same common goal?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to take it one step further, at Rev now, it's not one common goal ultimately, right? Because there's so many different companies, and some of them are conflicting. The team we own in Cleveland and the team we own in Chicago are in the same league, and they're trying to beat each other every day. So their common goals are different, right? So, listen, if I'm being honest, it's what keeps me up at night the most when I think about culture. When there were three of us, it was pretty easy to keep my fingers on the pulse of where our culture was, what were the issues that mattered the most, and how we were handling them. As we think about the world today, and I've got employees in I don't even know how many states around the country and different things going on, I don't know there's a perfect answer. I do know that you have to be intentional about it. I've never met an employer that says they don't care about culture. I've met many of them that don't do anything to actually create a positive one. I think I still believe in the saying, you're either coaching it or letting it happen. And so for us, it's really intentional. I have my executive meetings when I'm in town on Monday afternoons. We just had it yesterday. And every person on our executive team has to give an update on the culture. We talked about who the top performer is in the group, who are folks that have issues that we're paying attention to. We talked about, sadly, some of my staff had to put their dog down yesterday. And so, as you think through, what are the things that contribute to these people, and what are you doing to continue to invest in them? We just launched a management training program that's new for us, especially for us as a relatively new company at Rev, as we think about that world. We didn't think about management training all that much because we didn't have that many managers. We were all managers there for a while. And so I would say for us, trying to be intentional about culture is by far the biggest challenge. I never wanted to be the newsletter guy, if I'm being honest. But now, it's the most efficient way to communicate a lot of times. So we do a quarterly newsletter that everybody in the company, regardless of where you are, gets. I meet with the staff virtually and in person twice a year, where we do a big, similar to this forum, where we talk about each one of our business unit leaders gives an update on their space. So we try to be really intentional across all of it, and I think intentionality is ultimately the biggest thing you have to focus on. But it's not a perfect science. And one idiot in the group can ruin it for everybody. And so for us, we try to be really focused on that. I think one of the things that's helped us is if you go across my leadership team, our senior vice president was the first guy I ever hired to sell for me 13 years ago, and has grown with us and been with us every step of the way. My vice president of brand and sports management was an intern behind me 14 years ago. And on the Rangers side, she left the Rangers briefly, and then I hired her less than a year later to come back. The guy who runs our sports marketing agency, he and I started the Texas Rangers in the same day. He left and then ultimately went to the Stars as the vice president and then came over. So my point is, we've all been together for a really long time. So we try not to be complacent, but we also have we haven't had a lot of turnover at the executive level since we started the company. I think that's helped kind of buoy a lot of the culture and what's important to us.
Hi, my name is Liam Adcock. I just had a question regarding what...
Dude, is that an Astros hat?
Yeah, it is.
Read the room, bro. Read the room.
But, no, I just had a question about, with me being an undergraduate, how should I take opportunities that Tarleton gives me and then advance myself with them? So just outside of classes, when it comes to like things going on at the school, what should I take advantage of the opportunities they give?
Yeah, I'm kidding about that. I mean, I'm kind of kidding. I don't like it, but it's okay. Listen, I mean, the short answer is all of it. Like, to my point in experience, if you have time in your schedule to do it, you should do it. And I don't know, you guys, there's probably a bunch of resume experts here. I don't know, when I was in, it said to keep it to 1 page. I was just interviewing people this morning, actually, and I was getting like 5 pages. So I don't know what the right thing to do is, but I would love to see a volume of somebody that says, like, gosh, I don't know when this person slept because they were on it. So without knowing what the specifics are and what is offered and isn't, I don't know that I have great feedback for you, other than everything that you can get your hands on that has any kind of experience whatsoever, I would do it.
Hello, I'm Natasha Purcell. My question is a lot less serious than everyone else's, but I saw on your slides that about like the music artists that show up and stuff. So I was wondering who's one of your favorite artists that has played at Globe Life?
Gosh, that's a good question. The truth is, I don't really get to see the show much. As a result, I've got to meet a lot of them. Chris Stapleton's pretty awesome. Him and his wife Morgan are really cool. I got to FaceTime and tell their kids goodnight when they played our first show there, so that was super cool. We've got a lot of really cool ones. I can tell you the rodeo and college baseball are two of my favorite events that we host, because I just like rodeo and I like college baseball. On the artist side, Pink was pretty cool. Anybody that flies around in an arena, it's pretty awesome to see if you haven't seen it. Morgan Wallen was wild. We broke the all-time stadium record with Morgan Wallen, 44,000 people, and that'll be a tough one to beat for any event. Crazy because it was a little ahead of my generation, but on a Monday night in the middle of the summer, we had Joan Jett, Poison, Motley Crue, and Def Leppard on a Monday night break the all-time record for food and beverage sales at the time. Morgan Wallen ended up beating that one too, but which is really unusual in our business. And because the lineup was so good, on a Monday at 4 o'clock, we had something like 85% of the crowd already in the building. So those are a few of my favorites.
Awesome, thank you.
You got it.
My name is Matthew. The question I got is, when you experienced a rough patch in your path leading up to becoming vice president, or even now as vice president, how did you go about combating that by yourself and with your team? Was there any specific routes you took or sayings that necessarily helped you pave your path to make things good?
Yeah, good question. I mean, listen, for me, no question, probably my biggest pitfall is, I like to say, you either control the pace or the pace controls you. And when you have as much going on as we do, it's really easy to get wound up in the pace. For me, like my wife and I went to high school together. We came to Tarleton together. My wife is like the grounding force in my life. She doesn't care that I work in sports. She really doesn't care that I know Chris Stapleton or any of those guys. And so coming home and realizing that I'm really not solving the world's problems in what I do, trying to like keep proper perspective maybe is the best way to say it. You also have to have people around you. When we talk about accountability, that means that you have to be able to handle that. And when I give my speech to staff on what accountability means, a lot of that means you got to check your ego at the door. And for us, I have a really special group If they were here, they would love to make fun of me. They would love to tell me how stupid some of the ideas are on how we should do things differently. And so we check each other quite a bit, and we don't have a massive ego about this idea is stupid. I was just in Cleveland, and our starting shortstop has, 10 years of big league experience. And in front of the whole team, I called him out for a text message he sent me during last season. And so when you say that you create a culture of accountability, that means you also have to be okay when they check you. And I think our staff is really good at that, at saying we're pushing too hard, we're laying off too much, and I think they keep me in check as much as anything else. So work with good people, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, so you said that your major break was being a professional umpire. Like, you told us that that's when you felt like. How did you make the leap into becoming a major league umpire? Did that mean like starting to umpire at Little League? And was there was a lot of grind before you got to be a major league umpire?
Yeah, I think, I would say this as a whole. I think my first big foray into it, to being an umpire, was, to answer your question, yes, I started umpiring Little League Baseball when I was 13 years old. I don't know what they pay now, but back then they paid $30 a game, and if I started and did the 8 a.m. game all the way to the 8 p.m. game, I could make like $180 on a Saturday, which was a lot of money at 13. So that's how I started, and then I just wanted to get good at it. I would say I got a big break everywhere I've been. Like, I got named the vice president of the Texas Rangers at 28 years old. Like, that doesn't happen without a crazy amount of luck. And so the big break for me has been the people, the mentors we talked about, finding people that believed in me and gave me an opportunity to do things. At every step of the way, I mean, for now, it's the owners of the Texas Rangers that asked a pretty young professional for a business plan and then said, here's a checkbook. It certainly wasn't a blank check, but here's an opportunity to go do those things. And then, frankly, I think when you're looking for people, for me, I think a constant theme, especially with my bosses now, but across great leaders as a whole, great leaders typically are really hard to work for when things are going well, and really great to work for when things are hard. And we have it. I mean, I remember a scenario where I lost our ownership group a lot of money, we'll say. It was more than $1 million. And I went in and I told our owners this, and I was expecting to get fired. And the only advice I got on it were two things. They told me to shower well that night, which seemed like a weird thing to say, but their point was to go home and rinse it off and come back the next day ready to go. And then our owner told me this, and it changed my life. He said, the only way that we lose is if you quit doing deals. Which, after you just lose a guy over $1 million, that's probably not the first thing I would tell somebody in that moment. And so I think like the big break for me has been working for really good people that believed in me, and when they gave me an opportunity, every once in a while, I did okay with it.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Craddock. My question is, what's the biggest advice you would give someone thinking about going into like sports management?
Other than all the experience getting there, what I would say is when you get there, one of the things that I believe has become a little bit of a lost art, for folks that really want to work in sports, I will say this, like newsflash, not many of us work from home. Not many of us have like flexible schedules, and it's not a traditional 9 to 5. And I would say that like what set me apart early, thankfully, wasn't anything other than I was usually the first guy there and the last one to leave. Sometimes I accomplished that by sleeping underneath the conference room table, to be perfectly honest with you. But I would say that like that's become a lost art. The two things to me, and maybe I'm old school, but getting there early, staying late, and actually accomplishing something while you're there, that still is number one, how you get more opportunities, because you're around to be chosen for that opportunity. So I think that's it. The other thing is for me, the networking and outbound reach. I think that social media has done a million positives, and we could all just debate a lot of it. The downside is like, the reason I drove revenue is because I called and talked to people on the phone, and then I went and met in their office, and that's how we brokered deals. And I think that like, when I talk to folks now and they talk about outbound sales, they talk about how many messages they send on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever that may be. The two things I would tell you is get there early, stay late, and sometimes like obnoxiously. Get there so early that you beat everybody by 2 hours, and stay there so late and accomplish something while you're there, whether it's phone calls or whatever that may be, and actually connect with people. Like, don't just connect via, as I like to say, don't just connect with your phones. Like, figure out a way to talk to people and interact with them. That will set you apart tremendously from what a lot of folks that we see currently.
Last opportunity. John, let me just say this. We've had kinesiology researchers, world-class researchers. We've had sportsmen. We've had management. We've had any number of coaches. This was one of the finest ever.
Thank you so much. So we know Sean's a baseball guy, so we thought it would be appropriate to give him a Tarleton baseball jersey with the year of his graduation.